Good evening. This is the City of Hendersonville's Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting. It's January 9th. We are just right at 7 o'clock, and I appreciate y'all being here and those of you watching us far away. We're going to begin our meeting as we typically do. That's with a prayer and a pledge. Tonight, providing our prayer, and then going to lead us in the pledge. That's a surprise, isn't it? Just usually sign up for the prayer. It's going to be Alderman Jeff Sassy. Alderman Sassy, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's bow your heads. Lord Jesus, we come to you humbly. Lord, fill us with wisdom tonight as we come together to do your good work, Lord, for the city of Hendersonville. Lord, we pray you fill us with knowledge. Fill us with guidance for what you have for us to speak about tonight. Show us the path that you have for us, God. Lord, we want to lift up Alderman Jana Garton's father and also Dave Ebgen. You know the pain and the issues that they're having right now, Lord, and we pray that you have divine healing for them, Lord, and peace for the families. Lord, use us, be our hands, be our feet, and be our mouths. We love you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jason, for turning on that microphone for us. I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the agenda that was provided to y'all. We have a motion from Alderman Garton, I believe that was, and a second from Alderman Skidmore. Any discussion on the agenda? Yes. Hold on. Alderman Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we, under the public hearing, that we rule that the citizens' comments are the same rules we use for the public hearing.
So we have rules that are stated on the top of the citizen comments sign-up sheet. You want to apply those rules also to the public hearing? Okay. Which we've done many times. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second from, who was it?
Jana.
Okay, from Alderman Garton. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of that amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Now we're back on the main motion. That is accepting the agenda with this one change. Alderman Collins.
I would like to move that we approve to waive the 2-week rule on the first reading of Ordinance 2023-28.
Okay. So since it's already printed here and you're just bringing it to our
Okay.
attention, I appreciate that. I should have done that. I'm glad you caught that because we need to make sure that people do acknowledge that. So we have 3 items that are waiving the 2-week rule, as Alderman Collins mentioned, and it's items 3, 4, and 5. And all of those are time sensitive. Okay, we're good. Since it was printed on the agenda, we're good. So, any other discussion on the agenda that was provided to you? And we have one change that came from Alderman Dixon. All those in favor of the agenda that was provided to you with that one change, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. Thank you all. That passes unanimously. Now we have presentations, and we have 3 of those. First, we're going to have a presentation for the Holiday Fest. I believe that's going to be Linda and Larry, or is it just Linda, or is it several of you? I'll just let y'all get up there and tell us.
It's Larry. Not Linda. We're just Cindy Lou first. All right, so Mayor, thank you very much. Board of Mayor and Aldermen, thank you for having us this evening. We're here to award the Cindy Lou Who essay winners first. These young people have written a little essay, if you will, about kindness. And so we have 4 winners for that. So the 4th place person with an honorable mention is Brinkley Falaise from Liberty Creek. You got the plaque? 3rd place is Ivy and Natalie Jane from Natalia from William Burris Elementary. Second place is Holland Merrick from Nanny Berry Elementary. And first place is Neeland Cisco from Walton Ferry Elementary.
No, he's not here.
That's all right. Well, thank you very much for participating.
think we're
Congratulations on winning.
Larry, I think we're doing a picture. Where do you want me?
Mr. Mayor?
You want me to stand up? Okay.
I want you to know that their essays were incredible. And these winners know what kindness is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Got it? Thank you.
Parade winners.
So now we have the parade winners.
And the parade was Sleigh Bells Ring.
The Sleigh Bells Ring Parade. Hope all of y'all were able to attend the Hendersonville Christmas Parade. We're already making plans for, believe it or not, this year, although it is 12 months away. It'll be here before we know it. For the third place in the parade is the Masters School of Gymnastics from Hendersonville. And second place was the Hickory Hills Alzheimer's Special Care Center. And in first place, the Women Supporting Women in Middle Tennessee. All right. Yeah. Go up there in the front so the mayor can be in there with you.
They didn't really, I don't think they wanted that, Larry. I'm gonna let me look at Casey first, then we'll look over here. Oh. Okay, why don't we all look over here now, to the left. Thank you. Thank you. You're very welcome.
Can I get that cover that on that table right there? Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, congratulations. And now for the boat parade, if those of you who were able to be there to watch that on Drake's Creek. Christmas parade.
Oh, best performance.
Oh. It's not written down.
What is it?
Best performance is the Hawkins Middle School cheerleaders. All right, now on to the boat parade. What do you have there? Nothing. Okay. They've already been given out?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, let me announce the winner since I'm standing here and I've already said that, please. For the boat parade, the fourth place was Jeff and Myrna Bakurin. It was their first time of entering in. Third place was Matthew Dunn, first time entering in. Second place was Ron and Wendy Wills. That was the third time they'd participated. And first place was Laura Trantham with TNT Water Sports, and her second time of entering. So we appreciate everybody for participating, and thank you for having us. Have a good night.
Thank you. So our next presentation is from our Festival of Lights, awards by Kathy Pascal of beautiful Hendersonville.
Thank you, Mayor and Aldermen. It's good to be here tonight. You know, 1 month ago tonight, on December the 9th, Hendersonville suffered a devastating tornado. And so because of the uncertainty of things for the following couple of weeks, we did not announce the Festival of Lights winners at that time. So tonight, I would like to do that. And on behalf of the city and the Parks Department, we would like to announce the winners to you. And they are, well, and I would also like to just tell you that everything, all of the entries were posted and published and printed. So I hope you were able to access the entries and to go out and enjoy the displays, because they were absolutely gorgeous and some really beautiful displays. And so our number one winner for best overall is Michael and Leslie Willis, and they are at 111 Lawrence Way. Let's see, I think that is, nope. Let's see back. Okay, best overall. They are, I don't know how long they've been decorating, but they have just done a terrific job. So that was best overall. And then in the traditional, we had James and Stephanie McCrary, and they are actually at 115 Timberline Drive. And they're on a corner lot, and they go all the way around. Their backyard is just incredible. So we're happy that they won that this year. Then on our most animated, which is a new category because there are so many just well done, synchronized displays, we added this. So for the most animated was Mike and Sandra Grogg, and they are at 176 Luna Lane. And I know they've been doing this for several years, but it's always a great display. Then for our reason for the season, that is Floyd and Barbara Duvall. They're at 104 Natchez Drive, and they did a terrific job as well. Kind of hard to see here, but on our honorable mention, Alan and Stacy McGann, all of them were just terrific, but that's at 535 Shoots, and they were highly synchronized as well, but that was a terrific display. And then our neighborhood harmony, that was Windcrest, and that's a subdivision off of Saundersville Road. And a lot of the neighborhoods came together in that particular one for sure, but a lot of neighborhoods really stepped up and had full streets that were decorated. So we love that so many did participate, and again, I hope that you were able to get out and enjoy it, and we look forward to doing it again next year.
Kathy, thank you. Are you back to taking nominations for Beautiful Yards?
We will be doing that in the spring. We'll start up again in April with our presentations. So please, everyone, send in those nominations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your work on all this. Our next presentation is from the Small Business Administration. Robin, will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your background as well as what you're here to tell us?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Clary, for giving me this opportunity to speak here. My name is Robin Yang. I'm a public affairs specialist from U.S. Small Business Administration, or SBA. We are deployed here in the state of Tennessee, and I'm here in Sumner County because of the December 9th tornado, the disaster. My heart goes out to all the survivors, and especially Hendersonville. We are one of the hardest hit cities here. We offer disaster assistance to we help homeowners, business owners, renters, as well as small business nonprofit organizations to recover. We help with the uninsured and underinsured losses. So homeowners may be eligible for up to $500,000 of loan to replace or repair their real property, and the rate can be as low as 2.688%. And for homeowners and renters, if they have damaged personal property, they are eligible for up to $100,000, and the same rate applies here. And businesses of all sizes, if they have damaged business asset, they're eligible up to $2 million of loan, and the rate will be 4%. And no payment will be expected until the first until 12 months after the first disbursement of the loan. And it's really low interest loan from the government. All applicants needs to have credit acceptable to SBA, and I highly encourage all to register with FEMA first, because FEMA will provide grant, and the next step they can apply at sba.gov/disaster to apply online, or we do have some temporary local offices is available, and it's fortunate that we in Hendersonville we do have one office available that is located in Hendersonville Chamber of Commerce. So if anyone has any question, we do have customer service representatives there. They can answer your questions and apply, and they can assist you to apply in person on site. No charge. There's no cost to apply, and if the loan is not approved, well, if it's approved, you're not obliged to take the loan, and if it's not approved, FEMA may consider giving you more grant if you have physical damage. And also for business owners, if your business is not physically damaged, but you're suffering from economic loss, we also have another program called Economic Injury Disaster Loan, where business owners may be eligible for up to $2 million of working capital loan, which means they can cover your payroll, your rent, etc. If you have any, I'm also going to leave some flyers and the fact sheet at the table at the door. So if you want to learn more about it, or if you want to share with your neighbors who are suffering from the losses, please take some. And thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you so much for having me here. And Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your help. Next on our agenda, we have a public hearing, and this is actually a continuation of a public hearing to hear comments on Ordinance 2023-26. This is a proposed rezoning of properties and a zoning ordinance text amendment, a couple of them, that implement amended zoning requirements to reflect land use standards adopted with the passage of the Westlake and Hendersonville Land Use Plan. We actually started this public hearing 5 weeks ago, and we have continued it tonight. We have rules that we have applied to the public hearing tonight, and I'll read those. Speakers must identify themselves by name and address. Public comment shall be limited to 5 minutes per person, which time is not transferable to other speakers. All comments are to be directed to the presiding officer, not to aldermen, city staff, or other members of the public. Comments must address issues, not individuals or personalities. Personal attacks shall not be tolerated. Comments may support or oppose particular issues or measures, but the motives of those with different opinions shall not be questioned or attacked. Malicious comments will not be allowed. Speeches for or against particular candidates running for public office shall not be allowed. Our first person signed up is former Alderman John Prentice.
Thank you. John Prentice, 111 Airfloat Drive in Hendersonville. This one is, I guess challenging would be the right word to use to me. This was passed by the Hendersonville Regional Planning Commission after over a year of rather intensive work. I lost count of the public hearings. Basically everybody in Hendersonville, and in particular those on my peninsula who were mostly affected, were heard from and listened to. As a matter of fact, the biggest objection we had to and the Old Town zoning is the primary reason for changing this, and it needed changing. Our primary objection was and is high density, high rise, commercial, multifamily or pseudo multifamily when it comes to walking and all that kind of good stuff. But in any event, after a lot of work, the Planning Commission got a package that we could all live with. It was good. That package should have come to you untouched. Why it did not, I don't know. Won't even speculate on it. But what I'm going to ask you to do tonight is amend it back, amend what's on your agenda, back to the original Hendersonville Regional Planning Commission proposal. That's what everybody liked. That's what was worked out. It took a lot of manpower and a lot of hours to do that, and it was a good plan, bottom to top. Probably there's some odds and ends in there that not everybody's going to be pleased with, but you can't please everybody. So in any event, our big concern, again, density on our peninsula, high-rise stuff, hotels, really got no business there. Now, there was an issue brought up about one particular piece of property, existing apartments. Some attorney somewhere came up with the concept that even though it was grandfathered in to remain its current zoning, they couldn't maintain it. Now, I'm not sure what zoning ordinance that came out of, but I don't believe there's any such thing as a zoning ordinance that says you can't maintain and keep up property. Can you tear it down and rebuild it to suit yourself? No, you'd have to meet your existing grandfathered codes. But you don't have to let it sit there and rot either. There's no code that says that. I'm not sure. Maybe I just didn't understand the lawyerese involved in that. I don't know, but that's what I heard. But in any event, please go through this thing tonight, get rid of the changes, pass it exactly as HRPC originally sent it to you. Thank you.
Mr. Prentice, thank you. Nathan Green, Waters Edge Lane.
My name's Nathan Green. I live at 167 Waters Edge Lane, which is at the end of Sanders Ferry Peninsula. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, for the alder people that worked on this issue, the HRPC. Thank you to the Planning Commission. Thank you for those of you that listened to the public and modified your views. I know there was a lot of varying positions on this. I know this has been a fraught topic for quite some time, especially for those of us that live on the peninsula. And I know that quite a few of you probably recognize me. With that said, I think it should be reiterated a few things. First of all, I support Mr. Prentice 100% and affirm what he said. We need to go back to what the HRPC came up with. We need to take out the special request, and we just need to go with what the public approved, what you guys worked on and approved, all the hard work, all the listening sessions, all the outreach, all of, I think it should also be clarified that there were people, there were contractors and developers that participated in the HRPC process. There were plenty of opportunities for people with different varying interests, whatever they may have been, whatever their commercial interests may have been, whatever the situation was. There were plenty of opportunities for those people to enter into meetings and voice their opinions and give their points of view. And this new request seems to accommodate those that couldn't make time for those HRPC meetings. Now, I'm personally one that's all about the will of the people. I can say that over the last 5 years, growth on the Sanders Ferry, Walter Ferry Peninsula has been explosive. We've added hundreds of units and thousands of residents that have not yet to be counted. We still don't know how many people have moved there. What I can tell you is that the traffic is on magnitudes of 5 or 6-fold of what it was even 10 years ago. My friends and relatives and neighbors that have lived here for 30 or 40 years can't even fathom the difference. My friends and relatives that live in other places that don't live on this peninsula don't have these same issues. They haven't seen the same explosive growth. Unless they live next to a farmland that was sold to be a subdivision, no one's experienced this. Yet we continue to be asked to carry the burden. Walton Ferry, Sanders Ferry Peninsula was turned into a bike path. Nobody told us that, but now we got to share the road. So, all these great provisions that are added. We've got a boardwalk that's opening. We don't know where anybody's going to park. So as I live my daily life and as we're on our way to school and church and work, I'm constantly reminded of the decisions that are being made that benefit very few individuals. So what I'm here to do, without ranting and raving too much, is to say go back to what you did. Go back to the work that was put in. Go back to the HRPC plan, remove the special provisions, and let's move forward in a very pragmatic, progressive way, but with parameters and with guardrails that have been put in place by the public. So, with that said, I just want to again say that, there's been a lot of hard work done up here by a lot of people that have put in a lot of time. And I don't think that should be cast aside. I don't think that we should just assume because certain individuals are running unopposed that gives them a mandate to do whatever they want to do. And so it's time for us to say, let's reiterate what's been decided by the HRPC. Let's reinforce what's been given out by the public. Let's remove the special provision, and let's go with the original plan. Let's vote that through, and let's keep Hendersonville somewhat small town. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Green, thank you. Woods Drinkwater, Spade Leaf Boulevard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Woods Drinkwater. I represent the Grove at Waterford Crossing at 101 Spade Leaf Boulevard. We are in full support of the rezoning plan following the General Committee's approval of the revised plan as it did on December 12th. Those revisions do away with the Waterford Crossing area being rezoned to SR3, which encourages single-family use and would render all of the multifamily properties in that general area as legal non-conforming uses. State law says that a multifamily property that is legally non-conforming has a limited ability to conduct major reconstruction and repair. So for example, if one of these apartment complexes became aged and required reconstruction for reasons unrelated to fire, wind, or other natural disaster, by tearing these things down and rebuilding them, the multifamily apartment complexes would lose their grandfathering rights. They would forfeit it completely and would have to go single family. We think it's more appropriate to rezone these to MFR, which is a multifamily zoning consistent with the current use, and would urge this board to approve the land use plan as revised to rezone the Waterford Crossing area as MFR. Thank you.
Mr. Drinkwater, thank you. Ingrid Kormaji, Archer Way.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ingrid Korgamagi. My residence is at 410 Archer Way West in Hendersonville. I'm coming forward today to speak in opposition of the amendment of the Westlake Ordinance that will allow any building height up to 45 feet tall. You might be thinking, there's a 4-story Hyatt right across the street. What's the difference? The difference is that Westlake sits right on Drake's Creek and within a neighborhood of residential and commercial buildings that provide a distinctive look and feel. It's a type of place you'd expect to see in the city by the lake and draws locals and tourists to the businesses along Sanders Ferry Road. I'm looking forward to see the completion of some of the other cosmetic and functional updates planned for that area. It's one of the reasons why I actually chose Hendersonville over Franklin, over Brentwood, where a lot of my friends live. I'm not advocating that the current owner can't increase the occupancy of that property, nor that he couldn't sell the property to another entity like the Hyatt to develop into a larger facility. I am advocating that in doing either of those, the current owner of that or that new entity has to follow the code requirements that have already been put in place by the Planning Commission, which reflects the preferences of the residents of this community. We already agreed to this. It wasn't in detail in writing in that ordinance. How is it okay to change it without going through the usual process? Suppose that current owner does intend to sell his current property to a corporate entity. In that case, you can be assured that every one of those entities have people on staff or work with building design agencies to make a location feasible in the face of state and local building restrictions. I know this because I have been one of those people in my career. Making that brand experience and the community's wants work together were things that I did on a regular basis for several years. Here are just a few of the basic guidelines that I've had to work with in the past. There are maximum height restrictions. These are often set to ensure a facility doesn't block the views or sunlight or other buildings or residents, which we're discussing today. This potential building would be directly across a sensitive area, which is Drake's Creek. The visual noise alone of a 4-story cream or taupe stucco building from the road, the water, or the dog port would be significant. There are also design guidelines that may specify the materials that can be used, the style of the building, or the amount of open space that must be included. We already have specific language in Ordinance 2023-26 that discusses keeping the character of the area intact. Building considerations that benefit the community, such as LEED certification. There's an Embassy Suites downtown that recently achieved silver certification, a hotel in Gatlinburg that has a gray water program driving their LEED certification since 2009. These are only two examples of 1,693 certificates in Tennessee that all types of businesses acted upon to be better stewards of their communities. These are things that are at our disposal now in Westlake. These restrictions are put in place so that an entity can make necessary adjustments to fit the look and feel of the community and not create unwelcome visual noise. In just my Hyatt example, there's a group called the Hyatt Development Team that manages the Unbound Collection. The purpose is to, I quote, give developers the freedom to focus on what makes their property exceptional while leveraging the Hyatt brand. Every entity has this. There are clearly designed and structural options available to both the owner and a corporate entity to make a hospitality concept work within the existing codes without allowing a change to the building height. Thanks for your time.
Ingrid, thank you. I'll entertain a motion that we approve the minutes from our December 12th meeting that were provided to you in your packet. We have a motion from Alderman Sassy and a second from Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes that were provided to you for our December 12th meeting, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have citizen comments, but we have nobody signed up. We have nothing on consent agenda, and then we're going to move to ordinance and resolutions. Our first item is first reading ordinance 2023-26. This is an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance for the city of Hendersonville, Tennessee, and the accompanying zoning map to establish the Westlake zoning districts and associated zoning text amendments and other miscellaneous zoning text amendments for the city. I'm going to ask Keith Free to explain, to give us a background on this, give us some information about this. But I don't see Keith. Yeah. In that case, we'll go to Lance first. Oh, there he is. Here comes Mr. Free. As he's working his way up here, I need to mention that I have a conflict on this item. I own two pieces of property that would be affected by this, and I'll explain more about that later on. I will be voting on it because I will be voting my conscience on it. So, Keith, if you want to go ahead and help us out here.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Oh, thank you. Are you going to do a motion? Yeah, we do. I'm going to entertain it. We need to have a motion first. Thank you. We have a motion from Alderman Collins and a second from Alderman Garza. Keith, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I thought before we get going with this particular item, there's been a lot of questions. I've had a lot of questions from a lot of the aldermen and a lot of citizens here over the last couple of weeks, and I thought I might just go ahead and try to tackle some of those and then be able to maybe answer any specific questions that anyone would have from it. One of the things is it's been a little bit confusing about the Westlake plan and then this Westlake rezoning and the text amendments. The future Westlake plan for that area was adopted last year by the Planning Commission. And what that is, the future land use plan kind of sets a general pattern for what then future zoning rests upon when you have zoning changes and things like that. And then what you have before you tonight is actually a request to change the actual zoning of some of the property in Westlake, and then also changing some of the text that impact Westlake, as well as there's some things in there that impact the rest of the community as well. So there's a smorgasbord of a lot of different things going on with this particular item. Some of the questions that have come up in regards to, and I'll address some of the proposed changes that came out of the BOMA General Committee, but the straight what was recommended from the Planning Commission, it is supported by the document of the future land use plan. So the zoning that was recommended from the Planning Commission is supported by the future land use plan that the Planning Commission adopted. That particular future land use plan is an instrument that is adopted by the Planning Commission. BOMA could adopt it if they wish, but what happens is, and BOMA has not adopted the future land use plan when that was approved, and they haven't adopted that previously as well in the past. And part of the reason for that is if BOMA adopts a future land use plan or different versions of a future land use plan, then BOMA is held and has to work within the boundaries of that plan when they make decisions on rezonings and things of that nature. So the Planning Commission is bound by the future land use plan in the boundaries of what the decisions that they make. And then when the item came to the general committee, then there had been some different things I think that we're all aware of in regards to requests for potential changes, and then those are some things that are discussed here tonight, or that will be discussed here tonight. But one of the things is one of the questions that keep coming up is that even on the base of what the changes are that came from the Planning Commission, is this going to create more density in the area, and is it going to create more residential density and a lot more things like that? And it's not, kind of echoing what I think Mr. Prentice shared a little bit earlier. This was a lengthy process, and it was really a full engagement with the community, and that the Planning Commission was very responsive, to the community on what their needs and what they wanted for the area, and so one of those things was to decrease the potential for residential development, especially higher density residential development, and more intense commercial development in general within that area as well. So one of the things on the question about that came out of the general committee that's before you tonight with an alteration to what the Planning Commission had, one of those was there's an area there where the apartments and a lot of over on Waterford Crossing, Waterford Point, within that general area, that area on proposal to make that or propose to change that to multifamily instead of SR3, which would just been single family. And in looking at that, as far as so that everybody's aware of it, so looking at it statistically, that the old TR zoning that's currently on the property is pretty equivalent to actually multifamily residential. And as far as the issue of however the process moves forward is the multifamily zoning on that particular property where it's already fully developed is developed out, when you look at the acreage and the number of units and everything, it's about at 14.5 units an acre, and multifamily allows roughly about a total of 15. So it's kind of a wash in the sense of that if you tore everything down in that particular defined area and then it could all be built back under multifamily zoning, that the number of units would not be substantially different unless they did a planned development or something like that. But on the base zone, that it wouldn't be that. And then the issue that out of the general committee on the Kinder Hart daycare, that was something that was brought up by the Kinder Hart owners. I guess they recently purchased that here sometime here in the last year or so. But that the rezoning would then make their daycare a non-conforming situation. And then out of the general committee, then that was proposed instead of being SR3, that'd been just single family zoning, to do that as neighborhood commercial that would allow a daycare facility within that. Then another one of the questions is the whole thing about the whole hotels, and I think when somebody was speaking earlier about the height. So what it is what the Planning Commission had in the zoning ordinance that is supported by the future land use plan for Westlake is between Saunders Ferry Road and Walton Ferry Road, and from Cages Road to Main Street, kind of within that boundary, was defining that specific boundary that the height of buildings would be limited to 2 stories. And there were specific uses, and hotels were one of those uses that were not allowed, because most of that property, not all of it, but most of it is changing or proposed to be changed to general commercial, and general commercial allows for hotels, and the height of buildings can be up to 45 feet in the base zone. So that was one thing that was in there, and then what you're looking at that came out of general committee was the proposal to eliminate the limitation on hotels, and then also take that 2-story limitation limitation out there. So that's what that came out of General Committee was for. Let me see if there's maybe a couple of more.
Keith, as you're doing that, I
Yeah.
want to let everybody know that I'm going to ask our city attorney to speak right after you.
Yes.
And both y'all will stick around for questions.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
One of the things was asking that a lot of people have asked me about is, well, is the new plan and the new rezoning and all of that, is it going to, in addition to, is it going to increase density and those types of things, which it shouldn't increase density, especially residential density, and is it going to encourage residential development and redevelopment, commercial and residential development and redevelopment. I think with the plan as it is in those areas that are SR3, that are more in those protected neighborhood areas, I think you'll see more residential development and investment within those existing homes, because now we're protecting those single family homes. I think on all the stuff that's related to this commercial rezoning, I think it'll be very similar to what the existing zoning is, with the exception of that you can't have the multifamily or residential on the upper stories. So you could just do basically commercial. So I don't think there is necessarily, I think we'll see significant investment with this plan and with the rezoning. There will be some significant reinvestment within that area, but probably not loads and loads of investment within that area. But it goes to what through that whole planning process, and to get what the community wanted for that area was that something that protected a lot of the existing businesses and residential that was there, but gave opportunity for growth, but gave limited opportunities to where that it would grow within the character of the existing area. So that was one of the things that we've looked at. And then one thing, just to go back, just because this is a little confusing too, is this whole question about residential, the potential for that this plan or increases the opportunity for residential development. This certainly does not do that. This is something that the Westlake plan was very clear that having lower density residential development was a substantial change. One change, if some of you all were on there a couple of years ago, when the change was made in Old Town residential to reduce the potential number of units, could have been multifamily units, from 15 to 5. And that was before the Westlake plan. That substantially reduced the potential for that. And then this plan that was adopted, and then these zoning changes, specifically in the SR3 areas, it does further protect that area from substantial residential growth and the impacts that could occur from that. And then just questions about traffic and things like that. I think with where we are with the plan, with the changes in the zoning that have been proposed, aside from the issue about the hotels and the two-story thing, that the traffic, as growth does occur, traffic will be impacted, but it will be in a more low-impact type of way that's more fitting with the character of that area. And that is everything, Mayor. Those are just things that I think a lot of different aldermen have asked me about, and we just get calls in our office from people. This Westlake, the Westlake plan that was adopted last year, this rezoning, this is definitely has the interest of the community, and they've reached out to, through the last year, through this whole process. So it's really given us a great opportunity to talk with folks in the community and get their feelings and concerns, and then try to respond with that, with our planning tools and things like that. So, Mayor, that was kind of an overview, but I'll hang around to answer any questions. Thank you.
Lance, could you go ahead for us?
Sure. So there were requests, for example, like Mr. Free explained, there's an area where the Grove and the Point are, which are already multifamily, they're fully developed, fully used complexes that that what came out of the Planning Commission was a blanket change from OTR, which allowed that type of multifamily, to suburban residential. And there's also adjacent to those properties, some properties that have nothing on it that requests came in to also make that multifamily. And we have attorneys here that represent those people as well. The requests, we gave it due diligence, and we just felt like that if it was already there as constructed, fully developed use, as the multifamily complex is, then that making that SR3 or suburban residential may not be appropriate. One of the one of the purposes of our comprehensive zoning ordinance is to gradually eliminate non-conforming properties, which are grandfather properties that are used one way but then rezoned later and they're non-conforming. And that's one purpose of the zoning ordinance. So we felt also that by not changing the vacant properties to multifamily and leaving it as the Planning Commission recommended to suburban residential, and changing the ones that are already fully developed and used as multifamily complex didn't change the density because it's already there. And that wouldn't be a detriment to the adjacent properties. It's consistent with the land use plan because it doesn't add density. So, and then the same applies to the lady that came to speak with her little daycare facility. That's been a daycare facility forever. And it was zoned previously or currently OTR, Old Town Residential. And to make that suburban residential, single family, which was recommended by the Planning Commission, just didn't quite make sense either. So we met with her and spoke and found that neighborhood commercial is for small businesses, like a small daycare or, an accountant or something like that, that would make more sense for her. So that's part of that change too. Again, it doesn't change density, and it's consistent with the land use plan that we felt, and also it's not detriment to the neighbors there because it's already existing. Some other things that we discussed is that the current OTR is going away, Old Town Residential, Old Town Commercial. So for specifically to the multifamily complex that is there existing today, fully developed, since OTR is going away, it needs to be something. And again, I don't know how suburban residential would necessarily be appropriate for that. It would be non-conforming, which again is in conflict with what the purposes of our comprehensive zoning ordinance. That the next closest thing is multifamily. So, and then finally, as Mr. Drinkwater, the attorney, mentioned, when you have a non-conforming multifamily residential property, it does limit what they can do if they needed to rebuild part of it, all of it, for anything other than a natural disaster. And that could be detrimental in some ways that I could see. So for all those reasons, we looked into it. We met with the attorneys. We met with the property owners. We felt like overall this didn't change what the purpose and the intent and the spirit was of the Planning Commission's recommendations. And so therefore we find that that these changes would be appropriate.
Appreciate that. And Lance, there was we did hear in general committee from an attorney who made a request that we denied. Can you explain that?
Was that the one for the vacant?
Yes.
The one, yeah. As I mentioned, so adjacent to the multifamily complex that's already there are some properties that have nothing on it, but currently are zoned such that they could build multifamily on it. The Planning Commission did recommend that that be suburban residential, and we felt like since the intent and spirit of the Planning Commission was not to add density, not to do anything detrimental to the district or adjoining landowners, to keep in the residential, the single-family residential character of the district, that we did not agree with that request, and we kept, as the Planning Commission recommended, those parts to be suburban residential.
Right. Speaking of planning commission, if we pass this on first reading tonight, what's your recommendation?
Well, there's a statute that some of the aldermen and myself have been looking at, and it speaks to whether or not there's any changes to this plan, whether or not it would have to go back to the Planning Commission. I'm not 100% sure that it's applicable. We think that it may speak more to the, if it were a comprehensive zoning ordinance like we have. But out of an abundance of caution, we thought, we talked about, discussed, and would be my recommendation, if the board made some of these changes, then that between this first reading and the second reading, that we send it back to the Planning Commission for their review.
Alderman Martin.
Is this the Q&A portion of the process? Hey, Keith.
Okay.
Testing.
Alderman Martin.
Thanks, Jason.
Oh, don't touch it.
Don't touch it. Yeah, sorry. So right off the top, Keith Free, I want to thank you for all the work that you and your staff have done on the Westlake plan. It's been over a year that we have been beating that up to get it to something that would serve both the community and the property owners and the developers.
Okay.
I don't even know what I said. I liked what you had to say. There was a lot of analysis on property values and impact on commerce and a lot of stuff that came out of the general committee. One of the comments from a lot of the speakers was, why wasn't that conversation baked into everything that transpired over the year going into the final Westlake plan?
Yeah, I think a part of it is, and as you know, being a representative on the Planning Commission, a lot of those different things were not brought up and discussed about these particular issues. Some of these issues did come up in that process at the Planning Commission, and the issues about the gentleman that did such a good job of sharing about the hotel. I think here and maybe in the General Committee, that was discussed in detail at the Planning Commission before they made their recommendation, and as well as I believe there were some attorneys at the Planning Commission meeting that brought that up as well about some of those other issues. But through the whole process, or the lengthy process. There was not a lot from that other side of some of these proposed changes that were heavily involved throughout that process. The opportunity was certainly there.
Yeah, so it sounded like early on there were a couple of developers, one in OTR and one in OTC. They had asked for accommodations for their properties, and we incorporated those into the Westlake plan. So that just struck me as odd as to why we had the door open for a year for people to come in and hear from these folks and from other developers. And then in the final hour, after we approve it, we send it to general committee, and then attorneys come in and say, hey, I like what you've done, but we want to make a couple of adjustments. In your experience, is that something that's happened frequently?
This is a different kind of animal, because typically a city is not rezoning property as we're doing in this case. This is not typical, especially we're doing a very large area that we're doing. But this goes back really probably 4 years ago, when identifying some of these concerns that folks in the peninsula have and folks in the community have and leaders have about the growth within that specific area and the impacts, was that we needed to do something to change some specific things in the zoning ordinance to not allow some of the things that were being allowed. And of course, part of the important step of that is whatever changes are going to occur from the zoning ordinance have to be supported from the Planning Commission, have to be supported by the future land use plan. So then that's why we went through that process. And then when the Planning Commission made its recommendation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, it created, based on public input, what that future land use vision was for that whole area. And a part of that in regards to specifically the multifamily area that we're talking about, that's really it's already multifamily now, we're just talking about it being multifamily, that really it would have been difficult for the Planning Commission to recommend that being multifamily based on the future land use plan that they already adopted, because they would be going against it unless they went back in and tweaked the future land use plan to make it kind of work, if that sort of made sense. So when the Planning Commission's making recommendations to this body, then they're really kind of hemmed in on some things with the future land use plan. But no, this isn't. So what we're doing on this whole Westlake thing, and really the size of the whole Westlake redevelopment plan area and all of that, this isn't real typical for a city our size. I think in the past, it predates me, I think there were citywide rezonings where they reclassified everything and there were changes made. But in this instance, we're actually going in with a plan that supports it. We're going in as the city being the applicant, and we're saying we're going to rezone all these properties to something different that, and our hope is that it is defensible in the sense that we had a very detailed plan that is supporting that, and that was very transparent and responsive to what the public was requesting.
I agree. The final Westlake plan that came out of the Planning Commission was very transparent and responsive to what everybody wanted. One of the items in there that was highly debated was hotels and motels. Yes, a lot of faces that I recognized were here talking about how they did not want that. Mm-hmm. And they also had a problem with the height of the buildings, because we couldn't see this. We're the city by the lake, but we would allow 45-foot tall buildings to mm-hmm. block the view of the lake. Mm-hmm. And several planning commissioners addressed that directly and incorporated for the community, the buildings from Sanders Ferry Road or Saunders Ferry Road to the lake would only be one story. And then from Sanders Ferry Road the other way would just be 2 stories. Mm-hmm. And everybody loved it. Mm-hmm. And everybody went home, and then we had the final Westlake plan, and we were good. And we sent it on, and so here we are again. So it's a little bit frustrating because we had it where we wanted it, and then I think one owner, I can't remember his name, he owns Relax Inn.
Yes, sir.
There he is, yeah, Relax Inn. He came in and he said, hey, I'm not happy with having a non-conforming use. I understand I can always have a hotel. I can be the only person in the whole area that can have a hotel. I won't have any competitors, but I want more. I want to expand and I want to build taller. So I like what you guys did with the final Westlake plan, but I want something more. I want to change it, and we can't do it for his property because it's a thing called illegal spot zoning. So we would have to change it for the whole area in the Westlake plan. Everybody that's here speaking on it that lives in that area would be impacted by that. Is that correct, or?
It wouldn't, for that particular thing, that really had to do with a text. So we got two different things going on here. We got map amendments, which that's really related to the multifamily and that neighborhood commercial thing. But this whole thing with the hotels and this two-story thing, that's a text change. And so those are just text changes, and that really wouldn't actually be defined as spot zoning, but because you're not really zoning it to a specific zone, but you are impacting the text that impacts the existing zone. That is true.
Okay.
But it would be if you left that one property out, and then it would be you just had that one property that didn't have those limitations. Then it would just be one piece within and everything else surrounding it. Versus what came out of the general committee was just that whole area right there. Get rid of the two-story limit and get rid of the hotel limitation. Just for that.
Yeah, to go back to what we had before.
Yeah.
Right.
And in that area between Saunders Ferry, Walton Ferry, Cages Road, and Main Street, that's the area where this whole hotel two-story thing, that's the only place where that limit is. It's not any others. There is the area along the lake, along Saunders Ferry, that is limited to one story. So that does have a limit, but that wasn't anything that was proposed to be changed.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Westlake plan as it was originally provided by the Planning Commission before it went to General Committee.
So what you have
Can I
to
do that?
You're welcome to do that. What you have to do is explain to everybody the items that you want to take out, is what you'd have to do. And you're very welcome to do that. It'd probably take you a few minutes. Should we go to Alderman Dixon?
Sure.
Okay. Alderman Dixon.
Well, I'm kind of speaking what I think Alderman Martin is concerned about. The Westlake plan, the part that concerns me is this board never approved it. We never voted on it, never came here, right? And now we're looking at amending it. So in many different facets, several different facets, right? I would feel more comfortable if we didn't just have one ordinance, that we clustered these topics in ordinance so we could all break it down better and feel comfortable voting on that. That's my recommendation, which that means we wouldn't vote on it tonight. Because, I am concerned about the Grove and the Point and the adjacent land and making that multifamily. I would prefer to cluster these topics and have more than one ordinance that we can break it down instead of asking Alderman Martin to make a list right here on the spot when we didn't even get anything in our book. But I guess I'll make that motion. Is that a motion, or would Mayor Clary, would you be willing to do that for us?
How would we do that? Is that
Well, someone would have to come up with how you want to cluster it, number one.
I guess first thing is we'd have to vote this down, or
Yeah, a motion's been made. I mean, you can.
Yeah, let's try Keith. Keith looks like he has a light bulb over his head.
I think with like what Alderman Martin is saying, there's only just a few things that we can clearly define that were the changes from the general committee from the original. So we could, I could call out what those specific things were. I think it might be, this thing is so complex, it might be challenging to cluster it. You know,
Okay.
it's one thing to like what came out of the suggested changes out of general committee, incorporating those, then, you know, hey, we know it's these things and we're incorporating it, but breaking it into different parts, you know, that we might like. I think it might be difficult because it's all interrelated, especially when it relates to Old Town Commercial and Old Town Residential, because we're totally getting rid of those zones.
Yeah.
So the whole
Yeah.
zoning ordinance is changing, you know, within that part. But I can clearly define, I believe, the things that were the recommendations that came out of general committee.
If you can help Alderman Martin in what those things were, and so he can make his motion, I will be fine with that and withdraw mine.
So Alderman Martin, are you ready to do that now, or you want me to go on? Alderman Seymour's next.
I'm ready to do that now. The fact that you're having to talk about clusters and how complicated.
Hold on, I'm sorry, Alderman Martin. There we go.
I speak loud. So the fact that you're having to talk about clusters and what's going on and how to unravel this is the problem. This is the frustration that they have. That's just why I'm saying I want to approve the document that we presented, that was presented to BOMA in the November BOMA package. It has a date. It has everything that was ready to go right before it hit to BOMA. We don't even have to talk about which components we want to keep or not keep or break out. It is just, that is the one that we want, because we have beat it up for a year.
Basically, create a substitute.
Yeah.
Alderman Martin, hold on one second if you could.
I don't know. I got to think about it for a second.
Maybe another way to do it is to, and we've done this before in other items, is to create a substitute, really a substitute ordinance. We've done that. Remove every bit of the ordinance and substitute it with something else. And I'm not saying I'm in favor, I'm not saying that's the best way to go, I'm not saying that's the way you want to go, but that would be one option. Keith is not shaking his head in agreement, and Lance said it needs to
I
be
think there's a clear, fairly simple, there's what the planning commission recommended, and there's a few things, and we've discussed almost all those things here already that were modified. They weren't modified, they were proposals to modify that came out of general committee. And, you know, I think it would really be as simple as if you moved to adopt what came out of general committee with no alteration, then we know what that is.
Exactly. That's my motion.
If that's what it is. And then you could add those other things on if anybody wanted to add any of those changes as an amendment.
It feels like the more appropriate thing to do, since what is before us is in one form, would be for Alderman Martin to take out, we're talking about 4 items,
Yeah,
right?
just 4 items.
Is it just 4? Okay.
Is it?
I could tell you what those are.
It's the MFR,
Yeah.
right?
Taking out the MFR,
The hotel use,
the hotel use, the height,
the heights.
and then taking out the daycare,
The
going to neighborhood commercial. And then there was just one other thing on the
Well, hold it. It's on page.
adding reclamation facility.
Right, right.
And that was it. And then you take those out and you're down to what the original was. And I was thinking the alderman was talking earlier about clustering what came out of the planning commission
Right.
Yeah.
and pulling out some of those
Yeah.
things. So that would have been
Yeah.
complicated.
So
But this is pretty
We
straightforward.
can do a substitute motion for the reclamation facilities.
Yeah, you could keep that in there.
Yeah, just keep that in there.
And that wouldn't even, on that particular item,
And I think that would make everybody happy, especially with what we're trying to accomplish. in the
Right,
future.
because there's different items there, but there's only a few, like 6 or 7, like we just talked about. So I believe your motion should be, you take out what you want to take out as revised from the planning commission as an amendment.
And it might be easier if you go to the staff
from the
report,
general
page 2, which is page.
We don't have that in our books.
Yeah.
That's right, that was part of the 900 and something. Alderman Martin, are you ready to make a motion? We can also send this back to the planning commission.
Yeah, they already
but not
approved
these-
it,
Not these parts.
but they already considered these parts.
Yeah, you would, there's no changes for them to reconsider because y'all made no changes.
But with
Can we
the-
issue the reclamation facilities text as a separate issue later on down the road?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what came out of the general committee was to take that out. So you're saying that
No, that issue is a little bit unique because that was not considered by the planning commission. That was something that we added based on future plans. So that animal's a little bit different.
But I think these suggested revisions take it out back to what was with the planning commission.
Right, but we can add the reclamation facility language as a separate effort later. And that would
on
keep
sec-
everything nice and clean.
On second reading?
We can do that, we can do that, yeah.
Keith has a look at
Yeah, I
this
might
one.
just kind of clarify. So
Right,
the-
I
the
said it, I
adding of
said
the-
it in reverse.
Yeah,
I apologize. It hit me, I
yeah,
said that, sorry.
The adding of the definition of reclamation facility, that did go through the planning commission and got
Right.
recommended for approval.
Yeah.
Then at the general committee, then we're looking at that, of removing that and just getting rid of that definition of the reclamation facility. So it could, if you went back to what the planning commission recommended, there would still be a new definition of reclamation facility that would be within that. Or you could say, I want to go back to exactly what the planning commission recommended, with the exception of the reclamation facility, we will remove the language with that. So, I mean, that's an option.
All right,
So-
repeat that right there.
Okay, so you could.
That's my motion.
You could, I want to go back to the exactly what the planning commission recommended, with only one exception, which is removing the addition of reclamation facility in the definition. And that would be it.
Thank you.
Okay, so what does that one item about reclamation facility, what does that do?
It
Including the use
doesn't
table.
make that as an amendment. It doesn't amend it to a reclamation facility use.
Okay, what does that do for what does that mean, what city is gonna allow in that zoning designation and isn't gonna allow
It, just what it did before.
currently?
Yeah,
Yeah,
currently.
just go back to what
Yeah.
it is right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have a motion and a second. We have several people that want to speak. Really, we can speak on the whole thing at this point because we're really talking about the whole thing. I don't think the motion is limited to one aspect of this. But I do want to say, and I sat here quietly about this, after the general committee, the changes that I made in coming back, they weren't because I like those folks, I like the property, or anything that I have personal. It was my conversations with Keith and with Jesse and with Lance. I don't want to lose in court. That's what it comes down to. I don't want to lose in court. And I don't want to go to court. If we have to go to court to defend something, I'm fine doing that. But this is not what Lance told me, this is not what Keith told me. But the information that I gathered from multiple sources said, in my mind, that we need to make these changes because they will not withstand a legal challenge. That's why I made those changes. So, if y'all want clarification on that, I'm happy to give it. Let's go to Alderman Scootman.
Thank you. I know this has been a long process for all of us. And again, as Alderman Martin said, I want to thank you guys, Director Free and Lance, Mr. Ray. I want to thank you all for the efforts you've done. But not only you guys, but I want to also thank the people of Hendersonville who came out and who we had the calls from and who we had the emails from. And I'm horrible at emails, and I know that. But I'm really getting good at that Facebook thing. And my phone calls, man, I mean, I'm just old school. You call me on the phone, and I can assure you I'm going to call you back. I got two ladies that will Well, actually three, my dog, she's a girl too. She makes sure that she doesn't like for me to use the phone, but my sister and my mother, they make sure that I return those calls. So I do get a lot of phone calls, but on that particular issue, I had a lot of phone calls, and I do want to thank the Peninsula for coming out and voicing their opinion to me, and I'm sure to Alderman Bergdorf had them too, and I just appreciate that because we came out of the Planning Commission all united. After all, we had fuss and fight and figured out where it's going to go where and what should be. So I am along with Mr. Martin on this. I think it should revert back to what the Planning Commission said because, I mean, they did a lot of the work. They really did. And the people of Hendersonville did a lot of the work too. And so to deviate from that, I would be opposed to that because it's the people's work that I support because that's what I represent is the people. So if Alderman Martin is fine and all we're doing is taking the reclamation facility out and then we're going to come back, is that your understanding?
No, we're including it now. So
Oh, okay.
Done.
Okay, so, and this was my next question, and I wanted to make sure that I was in support of your motion and the people's motion, because I think they would agree with you on that. And I wanted to ask Mr. Ray something, because I wanted to make sure that I heard this correctly, and I know that I did, but, you know, I just wanted to make sure with you. So after we pass this Alderman Martin's amendment, this goes back to the Planning Commission, is that correct, or will it not?
I don't know why it would need to at that point, because there's no changes to the
Okay.
Planning Commission's recommendations, except for perhaps the one part about, but was that part of your motion?
Yeah, but it's not a material change.
Right, yeah.
Okay, well, okay,
That's part of it.
Thank you, because I was going to ask you, if you said yes, well, I was going to ask you what the material change would have been, so you all were speaking my language that I understand on that. And thank you. Let me just look here for just a second. If I had another, I'll tell you what, I will have another question if this, which I hope that it does, that this amendment or motion to amend passes. And then we're back to the main motion. And I just have a couple minor questions that really won't pertain to what we've been arguing or discussing tonight, what we've been discussing. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Skidmore, thank you. Alderman Goodwin.
I have a question for Mr. Free,
Yes, Alderman.
just to make sure I'm getting all of this correct. The hotel area, what is that zoned for now? What can be put on that property?
Right now on that property, you can basically do pretty much anything you can do in a commercially zoned piece of property, with the exception of you can also put a couple of stories of residential above it. So that's mostly, it's very similar to commercial, except it's mixed use where you could add residential on a second, third, maybe even fourth story, depending on the situation. So that's the way it is right now.
Now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you could go 4 stories with it.
You can do, yeah, I believe it's four. I think it's 45 feet. Is it 45 feet now with the Old Town Commercial? Yes, ma'am.
So we're changing it, if we don't pull this out, to where it could be a 2-story hotel?
No, couldn't be a 2-story hotel, as well as a few other uses that were excluded as well.
Oh, say that again, I didn't understand what you
There
said.
were additional uses within that, in addition to a hotel. Hotel was one that the general committee was talking about pulling out, but there's other uses within that defined area, between Walton Ferry, Saunders Ferry, Main Street, and Cages, that you couldn't have other specific uses under the Planning Commission's proposal.
Under the planning commission.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. So basically, with Alderman Martin's motion, with what the planning commission was recommending in that particular area that I just defined, it'd be limited to 2 stories, and you couldn't do any new hotels, or there's a couple other different uses that you couldn't do there as well. And that's different than the other general commercial property that's existing further down West Main Street, further toward the west. That's all just regular general commercial.
So until this plan is passed, people could put the.
Yes, you could do that from what we understand, any application that we receive before this is finalized would have to go under the existing ordinance. So we don't really have any particular projects that we're aware that anybody's fixing to put on our desk, but it could happen.
And if the Westlake plan didn't pass, we would have a lot more high density going on back there.
Yes. So if you just kind of scuttled the whole thing, it would be exactly the opposite of what people have been. Yeah, you're right. It would be. So it is complex, and it's been a long time coming. But this whole way of doing this, even if you make some adjustments with the multifamily and do some of those things, this is still so much radically different than what it is currently right now. And I think most importantly, it's pursuing what the values of what the community has at this point in time. And that's something to remember too, just from a planning standpoint. Good planning is good technical planning, but it's not just that. Good planning is what is it on big issues that the community feel are important? What's the vision of the community? And then trying to incorporate that with really, high-level planning type of techniques and activities. And but right now, you're correct. If we don't do anything, as we sit here today, there is a lot of potential sitting there, right now that could occur.
Okay.
It's a good question.
If I would add to that too, that the longer that you delay, if someone could have their rights vested in their property to be grandfathered in, if they were to apply for some permits and get some approvals, until this is finally passed, then they too would be grandfathered in, even though they haven't started development or anything. So just throwing it out there.
Thanks. Alderman Goodwin?
I'm done.
Thank you, Alderman Goodwin. Alderman Collins?
I have my first question is for Lance. My understanding is that the risk of lawsuit would be the damages, potential damages if we lost a lawsuit, would be the difference in the value of the property before and after we rezone it, plus, of course, legal fees. Is that what we're risking here? Or is there, there's no pain and emotional suffering. What are we risking here?
I really can't answer that because there could be a multitude of different lawsuits on a multitude of different causes with a multitude of different remedies. So I would have to have something a little bit more specific. And it still could be subject to a case-by-case basis. In general, on a zoning issue, I would say that part of that is correct as far as the differences in value, but there could be other things too that are sued for.
Thank you. It's a little bit difficult because in my mind, the question about the changes that we are addressing or not addressing, that the lawyers brought to our attention is how many tax dollars are we risking in a lawsuit, which we can't answer, versus how much is it worth to our community to make these changes and go to the lowest density possible? I sense that it's worth quite a lot. I'm very torn. I don't want to open us up to lawsuits. But there is a point where when you're making big changes like this, I think you are open to lawsuits? And is it worth it to your community to make those changes or not? The one thing I want to make sure I'm understanding, and this is for Keith, I have the documents, and so I'm looking at page 23, and I think that the daycare is this little square that says NC that's on the corner of Noakes and Walton Ferry. Am I?
That's correct.
It's just this little
Just a
bitty
little square, yeah.
So I'm very sympathetic to the daycare owner because I feel like she's a small business owner. She bought this building recently. She may not have even been aware that zoning would impact the value of her property in the future. And she's just the little guy out there trying to do. And it's a very, very small change. So that is the one thing that I would hesitate about supporting your amendment, Alderman Martin. And I'm wondering if you're open to including that change to neighborhood commercial for that little square.
Alderman Martin, do you want to answer this? And I'll come back to you. I know you have your button pressed for later on. Do you want to answer this now, or do you want
Sure, I can answer it. No, I'm not opposed to doing that. Nobody's given any opposition to that property owner. So if you want to include that, we can do that. You did mention dam.
Hold on. Let's stick with
Sorry.
just this right here. Let's figure out how to do that. How do we do that?
I think with, and Lance, I think if we're talking about changing a zoning from the actual zone, from what our attorney was
Then we have to
saying,
go back to planning commission.
it would at least just need to go back and touch the wheels down at the planning commission on a specific zone change.
Well,
Or not.
I
What
don't
do you-
know if that's significant enough.
Yeah,
just
that may
one
not be.
piece.
Not just that one.
And
no.
to answer your question, I think Alderman Collins would just make a motion
So
to
I would make a
amend.
motion
Well,
to.
hold on. The person who made the motion for the amendment seems to be agreeable, so we don't have to make an
So I need
amendment
to
to an
amend the
amendment.
amendment? Okay.
I'm agreeable to amending my motion to include that.
Okay. Alderman Peterson, do you agree with that? Or you were the person who made the second?
No, I don't.
Okay. So the easiest thing would be to withdraw that motion, Alderman Martin. I'll go back to Alderman Collins to make that motion to make an amendment to the amendment.
All right, I'll withdraw.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm making an amendment to the amendment?
You are? That's
And
as far as we
so
can go.
I would like for the original amendment that Alderman Martin made to say, we're taking out the MFR that was, and the height and hotel that was added at the general committee. And then, is that,
No, I'm gonna,
and that's all that's left, because we're not doing the reclamation and we're not doing the little block with the daycare.
well,
Right?
did you want to do the block of the daycare?
I want it to be in there like it is in the general committee recommendation. It was so bad, it's so weird.
I know.
I don't know how to say what I,
Let's
y'all
say
know what I want,
You
right?
would like the daycare to be different, the daycare property
To
to be
be
different than what
neighborhood
it,
commercial.
to be neighborhood commercial. Gotcha. Okay, that explains it right there, okay? Did you get that?
I did.
Okay, do we have a second to that?
Second.
Okay, so we have a second from Alderman Sassy. We are just gonna speak on that right now, whether or not the daycare, the property that currently has a daycare should be neighborhood commercial, okay? That's it. Keith, you seem like you have a light bulb over your head again. Go ahead. No, hold on. Go ahead.
Yeah, in talking with staff, now that this has come up, I think a simpler way to do it would be with a text amendment to make that a conditional use permit, a daycare, an allowable conditional use permit in the SR3 zone. And then that way, that would be a conforming daycare in an SR3, and then if anybody else in an SR3 wanted to have a daycare, they could go through the BZA, and all the neighbors would know, and they could try to get it approved that way. I think that would be a simpler way to do it. And if you're talking about going with what the Planning Commission had on the zoning, then that would do the same thing. It would take care of the daycare and make sure that it remained conforming. Because if something is clearly like a daycare, is we change it where it was allowed, and then now it is a conditional use, but it's existing, it's just like it's permitted. So that is a way we could do it. Lance, I think.
Would that conditional use just be for a daycare?
Just for a daycare. We just would add conditional use to SR3 as a potential conditional use. No, it would be for all of SR3.
Well, she's not here, and I know that she voiced to the general committee and to others, and just to reiterate, I think she was looking to maybe have the flexibility to do other neighborhood commercial type activities and not just a daycare.
Okay.
But
So
just to state her
that was just
position.
one option, but
Yeah.
it could go the other way, and then with that being such a small piece, might not be something that would have to go back to the planning commission. Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. I just wanted to share that.
Okay, so I think we have three choices. We can stick with your amendment to the amendment, which is to change that property to neighborhood commercial. Alderman Sassy, okay. You could withdraw that and wait till second reading, or you could go with what Keith mentioned and throwing it into a conditional use permit situation.
I appreciate Director Free's comments, but my memory is that one of the concerns was that her
Thank you.
building is valued higher because it has potential in the future to be something else. Should the daycare, she's only had it a year, so I don't want to say should it fail, but, hopefully that's not an issue, but, so I think that would still devalue her property if we just added it as a conditional use. I would feel more comfortable. I feel safer with going with the neighborhood commercial for that little area.
You still want to go for it? Okay. So we're just speaking on that right now, okay? And if you want to speak on that, raise your hand, okay? Okay, Alderman Goodwin.
I'm all for helping people, and I'm all for listening to the citizens. That's what I feel like I'm here for. But I'm getting a little concerned that we're picking and choosing different properties within this plan. And I want to help that lady, don't get me wrong, and I want to help the citizens, but I'm struggling with the fact that we have an attorney that's telling us one thing, and then we're starting to pick and choose, and I feel like we're going to open ourselves a can of worms. I feel like it needs to either be like it is. I mean, we have an attorney. I feel like we need to listen to him. And I would love to help that lady, but I have a problem doing that. What if the other property down the road wants us to change that? Where do we stop? That's just my concern.
Alderman Goodwin, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Alderman Sassy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually just wanted to respond to that. Now, if you look at the map, the property across the street is also neighborhood commercial. And it's right on the corner of Walton Ferry and what's the crossroad there?
It's Noakes.
Noakes, yeah, Noakes Drive. So it's creating like a neighborhood commercial pod in that area. So it's not, I did not second the amendment because while I want to want to take care of citizens as well and their rights, and I was sensitive to what she was saying, I was not thinking about that. I was thinking about that area, because if you have just one building currently, or one corner of that intersection as neighborhood commercial, and everything else around it is SR3, it looks out of place. So I'm thinking that having that corner kind of be a neighborhood commercial corner, it makes sense for the neighborhood. That was my thinking.
Hold on. Alderman Sassy, thank you. Anybody else want to speak on Alderman Bergdorf? And Alderman Sassy, go ahead, hit your button again, and I'll come back to you after we finish this. Okay, go ahead.
May I go? Okay, thank you. Hey, green, all right. So regarding this ordinance, if this ordinance passes, if we go ahead and allow for this, the daycare to be zoned appropriately, or if we do not, is there anything restricting her from coming forward again to the Planning Commission, to the board, to request a submission or petition for a zoning change?
No, she could, as well as any of the other property owners.
Unlimited
after it.
times?
Yes, they could. They could come forward with a rezoning request, and yeah, they could do that if you went.
So we're not just shutting the door completely down here?
They could come back. The ease of it is doing it somewhere within this.
Sure.
But if it's not included in there, then there's an opportunity for this property to come back. And just from listening to the discussion, it certainly seems folks are very sensitive to it and kind of open to consideration of that if it did happen in the future.
Thank you. Alderman Bergdorf?
Thank you, that's
Thank you.
what I wanted to
Okay.
know.
So we don't have anybody, thank you. Alderman Collins?
What are the costs that would be incurred associated with making a rezoning request? Fees and so on?
Keith?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What kind of costs would be associated for a business that was making a rezoning request?
It just went up. We just increased the fees, and I think I can't remember. I think it might be $1,000. It's something.
And they have to have plans and things drawn up by engineers too?
Not for rezoning.
Not for rezoning?
You just say, hey, this is SR3. I'd like to make it neighborhood commercial. Here's the reasons and
Okay.
findings of fact of why this makes sense.
Okay.
But probably in this instance, they would also be requesting a change to the future land use plan too for that spot as well at the same time. So, and that would be a separate fee as well.
Jason
on
will do
that.
this electronically.
Okay, but $1,000 is less than I thought you were gonna say, so,
Yeah.
because I thought they
I
would have
think
to have
it-
engineering drawings and all
No,
that.
no,
so-
it's just a.
Okay.
Yeah, there's the fees. I can't really see if they could enlarge that. It would be for the future land use plan amendment and a
I
zoning.
want to say something before we.
Okay, it's, yeah, it'd be 1,500 and 1,800, so it would be about $4,300 is what that would be.
Okay.
But there'd be no plans associated with that.
Alderman Collins, thank you. Thank you. Alderman Martin, on this neighborhood commercial amendment?
Yes, I was going to.
Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to add, if you look at the last planning commission meeting, we actually had somebody come in and ask for a change to the Westlake plan.
Yeah.
To go from industrial to general. So you can see how that process works out and how accessible that option is for people.
Thank you, Alderman Martin. Lance?
Just a couple of clarifications, Alderman Collins, when you were asking me about damages in a lawsuit, the way that was characterized, I may have overgeneralized that, but it isn't something to where you could calculate that what would only cost this versus that, because a court very well could just overturn what the board does on it too. So it may not be just a matter of damages. So I wanted to be clear about that. And also, I know that you were reminding us about the lady with the daycare, and she did mention about values and things that she wanted to do, but I also heard from others that your vote is also what we've talked about, which is it's not detrimental for her, for the neighboring properties, the adjacent property owners, or to the character of the residential district there, because she is existing and it's not changing density or anything like that, which I assume is what you're going off of. I don't know. That's all. Thanks.
Hold on, Alderman Collins, go ahead.
And that this little area, there's already the Bread Box, which is a super popular place to stop on the peninsula and get little things and buy gas, and it already kind of acts as a hub for convenience. So it already it feels like neighborhood commercial to me already. But I don't live there, so I mean, I do defer to the other end of the table since it's not my area.
So here's what we have in front of us. It's an amendment to the amendment. Specifically what we're voting on is if the property that currently has a daycare on it should be zoned neighborhood commercial. This Alderman says? Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, Alderman Collins, I'm wondering if maybe we should just let the process flow the way it was meant to be. Let the process go the way it was meant to go. What do you think? And
If a future use were to come up, that they could request a rezoning.
that's what I'm thinking. And we just leave things as they are.
I think I feel reassured knowing that the cost isn't that much, and yes, I think that's the best
So
decision.
You're withdrawing your motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and Alderman Sass, you're
Yes.
withdrawing yours? Okay.
Thank
So
you.
now we're back to the proposed amendment from Alderman Martin that, I don't really know how to explain this. You want to do it? You want to explain where we are? Yeah, yeah.
I can't hear.
Okay.
Yes, so we're back on my amendment, or my original motion, which is to approve the Hendersonville Planning Commission rezoning amendment as it was originally passed by the Planning Commission and sent to General Commission, to General Committee meeting, with the exception of the language for the salvage reuse facility, reclamation facility.
Okay, I appreciate that. I want to explain why I'm going to vote against this. I talked sort of about the conversations we had legally with that. I also feel like we're taking away some folks' rights. We've talked about the lady who bought the childcare. We have a gentleman here tonight who recently bought the hotel. You want to stand up? Okay. He has plans. He has plans to reinvest in this part of town, which is exactly what the Westlake Plan's mission is, to encourage private reinvestment of that part of town. He has plans to do that. We are telling him no thanks if we pass this amendment. I can stomach sort of the other items that I can stomach removing the other items that I'm really not a fan of. But these two I have a hard time with. I have a hard time with taking away value from him, and to a lesser extent, taking away value from the lady with the childcare facility. This guy has plans, and he's doing exactly what we're asking to be done over there. So that's why I'm going to vote against this. So Jason, we should probably do this electronically. Alderman Martin explained his motion very, very well. So if you vote yes, you're voting for the essentially substitute amendment. Can I describe it that way? Okay. And if you're voting no, you go back to what was provided in your packet. Jason, you're looking at me with concern. We're good. Okay. Who are we missing? Alderman Carton, Alderman Goodwin. Need to get to 11. Yeah, it did. Yeah, I hit it. Alderman Garton and Goodwin. Okay. So hold it just there a second, Jason. Okay. So voting against this is myself, Alderman Goodwin, Alderman Garton. Voting for the amendment is Alderman Bergdorf, Skidmore, Peterson, Martin, Sassy, Garza, Dixon, and Collins. So now we're back on the main motion. We have a whole substitute is what we have. Correct me if I'm wrong, y'all don't feel like it would need to go to the Planning Commission if we pass what's on the floor right now. Is that?
I don't think so, but I would say that if on the second reading you thought you might want to make some more changes, it might be too late. It would be too late to send it back to the Planning Commission. So anybody can bring it back to the Planning Commission. It doesn't require a motion, but it might not be a bad idea to have some of these things discussed if the board determined to do that. But I'm just saying also, if there were going to be more changes at the second reading, then there wouldn't be time to take it back to the Planning Commission.
And we need to keep that hearing open
Okay.
for the next, if it passes.
Okay.
We need to make sure, I don't know if that got closed earlier or
Okay.
if
Okay.
it's still open.
So we will continue the public hearing. I didn't mention that earlier. We will continue the public hearing on this at our next BOMA meeting. Keith, would it be inappropriate for me to ask the Planning Commission to consider all the changes that we just removed and get their input on them so anybody could make an amendment pertaining to those items at second reading? Would that be inappropriate?
on the things that were removed. I mean, you could always kick it back to the planning commission for those things. It could be done, I mean, it just depends on what the will of MoMA is.
Could
you
I
know,
do
on
it as a
this.
sponsor? Could anybody do it as an alderman? Without the whole board voting on that?
I don't know, I would have to, you talking about starting another, so if you talking about approving the raw, approving what Alderman Martin was saying, is if you approve that, and then just separately go back for those things we're not including, and asking the planning commission to consider that, I think we could definitely do that.
Because Lance is saying we don't really have that option at this point when we get to second reading, if the planning commission hasn't considered those items. It'd make it so much harder. I mean, it could be a separate ordinance, as Alderman Sassy mentioned.
Well, then it would need to go
There you go.
all over, start that process all over
Yeah,
again
it's
if
a-
we did that, but.
So my question to you is, could I take these 5 or 6 things that we just took out? Could I pick 1 or 2 of them and go to the planning commission and say, give me your input on this, and then make an amendment at our next meeting, or anybody make an amendment at our next meeting when we consider second reading?
I think that you could.
At the second reading.
It doesn't, there's no clarity in the law when it says if there's any departure from the plan on when that happens or who can make that happen,
But if I don't go to the planning commission, nobody can bring those items up at second reading.
it would be more advisable maybe to have the planning commission's input, but.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a clear, I would have to think about that. I think certainly you could bring something back to the planning commission and we could get that on the agenda for a discussion, you know, for our February agenda. I mean, we can.
I don't want to delay anything, though.
Well, then, you know, what it is like where we're at right now with the public hearing still being open, then we're looking at the second reading can happen in 2 weeks.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
I mean, so if that's the case, then, you know, we're not going to be able to, before the second reading is done, we're not going to have the opportunity for a planning commission meeting, because that's going to be February the 6th.
I see.
You see what I'm saying? That's
I thought there was a planning commission meeting.
I want to
so
make a
it's
motion.
the first Tuesday of the.
I want to make a motion. Help me out, Keith. I want since y'all withdrew it, and we didn't vote on it, I feel like I can do this. I want to make a motion that we take the property that has a childcare and designate it as neighborhood commercial. And I want to make a motion that we have the text amendment for the hotel reinstalled where it was.
Okay.
Does that explain to you guys what I want, what I'm looking to do?
Yes, you're looking to, you need to note a couple of findings of fact because we're altering a little bit of what the planning commission had. So you just got to list a couple of facts of this reason or that reason. But you're saying you're making an amendment to where the daycare is located that is proposed to be SR3, that should be changed to HC, not HC, to NC, neighborhood commercial.
Yep.
And then also, you're saying that the limit on hotels within that defined area that I talked about earlier, to remove that limit of hotels, but still keeping the 2-story limit. They're not, or you didn't say anything about the 2-story.
No, for that defined area.
Oh,
Kate
just
is-
for the hotel?
Yes, of 45 feet. Or was it 4-story? I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, what you would do is, you'd say, on the daycare, what I said about the zoning, and then for the relax-in, you'd say on that specific parcel of property.
Okay.
Then alter a note on the text, in the text, that would exclude that specific property from the limit of hotels and the height requirement. Still the other uses that are listed, but that would be the way you could do it.
Essentially, what we're doing is we're allowing all neighborhood commercial uses where the childcare is, and we're allowing a 4-story hotel in the future. Is that a good way to describe?
On that specific relax-in property.
On that specific
If
piece
you
of
did it
property.
that way. Yeah, you could, that would be a way that you could do it if you wanted to do that. So that would be the wording of that.
Okay.
And then you need to list maybe a couple of strong reasons why,
Okay,
and then call that findings of fact.
okay, I'm happy to do that in just a second. Alderman Garza?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, okay. So to me, here's the findings of fact that we have, and tell me if these are reasonable. One is that we are not changing the current, by doing this, we are maintaining the current uses,
Correct.
okay? By not doing this, we are having a negative impact on property values. Is that a reasonable assumption to make, or does that matter?
I don't know that I've listed that one.
Well, it's
We'll take it out, okay.
also, it's the, is it detrimental to the neighboring properties? And is it,
Is it reasonable to say that by making this amendment and by not changing the current future uses, we are not having a detrimental impact on nearby properties?
Yes.
Okay?
and is it consistent with the spirit of the land use plan?
And it is consistent with the spirit of the land use plan and the mission of the Westlake area.
Those would be sound findings of fact.
Okay? And
You know,
one
for
more I'd
that.
like to add is we do not anticipate that the impact of traffic would be significant.
Yeah, that would be the third.
That's good.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so, can you remember those? Write those down, okay?
Maybe between me and Lance.
Okay.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, so that's my motion, a second. Alderman Garza, you're okay with that?
I am, yes.
Okay. So just on this amendment, please, Alderman Martin.
So I'm sketchy on the Robert's Rules of Order, but I think it says a member of the prevailing side can seek a revote.
I'm not asking to revote, I'm asking to make an additional amendment to the main motion.
Okay.
Okay, appreciate that. Anything else?
No.
Okay, okay. Alderman Bergdorf.
Collins was first, I think.
Oh, you were right, you both, okay. Alderman Collins.
We tied. Oh, my gosh.
You're it.
I just want to ensure that if we approve this amendment, then it goes back to planning now.
Or does it need to?
Was that asked toward me? I'm sorry.
When's the next planning commission meeting?
February the 6th, is that the first Tuesday?
It
I
is.
believe so.
Could we call a special planning commission meeting?
I wouldn't, because if we're going to discuss some of these things,
Okay, okay.
I'd be more comfortable if we had a public hearing.
Okay.
And then, to give the proper notice of it. I mean, we could do it, but I think, given the whole circumstance of all this, I think it'd be maybe better
Okay.
if we had a proper, we could do a proper public notice, but having, the typical kind of notice we give.
But if we go to planning commission, it's only gonna delay us by 2 weeks, not a month. Is that correct?
Well, we can bring it back to BOMA the 23rd. Then if it goes to planning commission, it'll be the 13th. So it's just like 2 or 3 weeks, I guess, extra.
The 23rd. So second reading would be, no, we would go to planning commission the first Tuesday of,
Yeah, February the 6th.
and then we would come back here February 13th.
Yeah, you could bring it directly back here and just slide it right into second reading. But if you didn't, if you approved first reading tonight and didn't go back to the planning commission, then you could bring it back here the 23rd with the public hearing being open for the second reading.
So I think I'd prefer to do is have the planning commission look at this on the 6th, and then it come back to us on the 13th.
Okay. We can,
Did you say the 6th, Keith, is the next planning
yeah,
commission
that's the
meeting?
next planning commission, and I've got enough time that I can get notice out, 15-day notice and publicize, and I could do that for that, and for, if we met on February the 13th, I could get the notice for this meeting.
Okay.
Second reading.
I would offer that, you've had public hearings at the planning commission, public hearings here. We will continue to have a continuing public hearing.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel pretty comfortable that
Yeah,
we've
we're
met,
covered on it. Yeah,
we've
we're-
met the public hearing requirement. Even if you had a special called meeting, and you had the notice of the meeting, and you had opportunity for citizens' comments. I feel comfortable that you've still met the public hearing
Yeah,
requirement.
we can definitely meet that requirement, that minimum requirement. But I'm just saying I would be more comfortable with a more time provided.
Okay. So
If we're doing a special call on this particular subject, you know, it's, that's just kind of my thought, but I'm good with whatever BOMA or the city attorney
So
wants
to me,
do.
what our plan should be, if we pass this amendment, I hope I'm answering your question. If we pass this amendment and it passes as part of the main motion, then we will ask Planning Commission to consider these two items on the 6th of February, and then it will come to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for second reading on 13th of February.
Yes.
Okay, I think I answered your question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Collins. Alderman Bergdorf?
Hi, yes, thank you, Mayor. No, that's all right. What is substantially different about this amendment versus the initial ordinance request?
To me, what's substantially different is that this is just two items as opposed to the whole substitution amendment.
Okay.
So, which was 200-something pages.
Yes, wasn't it? And then, is there anything, if this does not pass, if this amendment does not pass, is there anything preventing applicants from coming forward and requesting these changes individually?
So.
Like, in the future,
In the
just start
future.
all over? I mean, yeah,
next
anybody
week.
could do that at any time, but you go through the whole process of the,
I'm feeling like we're feeling rushed here. I feel like there's an urgency, and I'm not, I'm uneasy about the urgency here. Because we've had one amendment to the ordinance, and it passed. Now we're presenting a second to get this through. I feel like it would behoove us to take some time, step back, and maybe look at this with a little more clear-eyed, perhaps. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bergdorf. Alderman Sassy.
Thank you, Mayor. Ooh. I'll just stand back here. Yeah, so, you know, the Alderman Collins and I had an amendment that was very similar to this one, and we withdrew it with good cause, that we've wanted to follow the process. I feel like that's still the case. So if, for that reason, will be voting against the amendment. Thank you.
Alderman Sassy, thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment? So what the amendment is, Alderman Collins.
The people who just bought the Relax In, which we weren't aware of, I wasn't aware of that. I would say that you can request a variance,
Right?
right? You can request a variance.
If we don't pass this, he has to request rezoning.
And that
No,
has
it'd be
the
a use.
$1,500 fee, and then a variance for the,
it'd be, it's.
Yeah,
not a
there
permitted-
wouldn't be any variance for it. It would either have to be, well, it wouldn't be a
a
rezoning.
variance for the height?
Huh?
For the height, they would, if they wanted to do 4 stories?
It's not technically a hardship, and you'd have to have a planned development probably to do that, so it'd be a little bit different of a process. The easier way to do it, not easier, but probably the best path to do would be to come back and request a text amendment that would remove that requirement from that,
If this fails.
if this fails. It's not an easy path, but if you did a planned development there, I don't know. There's not an easy way to fix that later. I mean, there's paths to do it, but it's not an easy thing to fix later.
I would like to see that fixed up, and I appreciate the investment in the property, but it would impact the lakefront, which is not what we want to do. So seems like we're caught between a rock and a hard place.
Thank you, Alderman Collins. Alderman Sass, you were next, but Alderman Skidmore hasn't spoken in a while, so we're going to go. Okay, Alderman Skidmore.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to, I'm not going to get up here and yell and rant tonight, believe it or not, because this is first reading. I probably, well, it depends on how this thing goes. I probably will. But to me, and I'm going to reiterate this again, this is a direct, by changing this with these new amendments, to me, just to me, it's a direct slap into the people of the Saunders Ferry Road and the Walton Ferry Road Peninsula. It's a direct slap in their face, and it's also a direct slap in the Planning Commission face, which I don't mind that, because we're at odds, and we're all working in government, and you're supposed to do that. But as far as, and I don't know how many thousands of people that live on the Saunders Ferry Road and the Walton Ferry Road Peninsula, that's a slap in their face. They came up and fought hard for what they believed, that where they're living, they want it to be a certain way. They didn't want all this other. My personal feeling is, and then that's one, and that's the most important thing, is what they feel, what all the 20-some-odd thousand people feel in the city of Hendersonville. I pay attention to that, no matter where they live. If they live in Ward 5 and Ward 4 and all that, I still listen to that. They live in Ward 2 and Ward 1, you know I'm going to listen to that. I always have. But my point is this. That's a direct slap in their face by doing this. And number two, my personal feeling is we're opening ourselves into lawsuits like you had not ever even dreamed of. We came here tonight to vote on, and we did vote. We voted on Alderman Martin's amendment was to go back to what the Planning Commission said. And I think it passed with 8 votes or something of that matter. And now we're wanting to pick out certain ones because and I don't, all the mayor, I understand, and I'm not criticizing him for this, because the mayor is different than an alderman. I want everybody to know that. The mayor has to look at the whole city, whereas each individual alderman has to look for the districts or the land that he or she represents. But there is no, I certainly will not vote for the amendment, because that is, and I'll say it again, I'll say it until it passes, and probably I'll say it afterwards too. It's a slap in those people's, those thousands, literally thousands of people's homes over there on that peninsula. And they're going to be mad, and I don't blame them. But I can tell you this, I'm not going to be the one saying, when they say, did you vote for that? I'm going to say, absolutely not. I did not do that for a certain amount of people that wanted their property rezoned. That's like picking out, to me, picking out pieces of property. And if that's the case, then, I'll go on record as saying, if you all want something zoned and you want it picked out, then have at it. Because that's what happens. Once you put one in there, then another one's going to come, and then another one's come. And look at what has happened to Hendersonville now. Gallatin is experiencing the same thing that we did over 20 years ago. And look what it's got them. Listen, how many people have to go to Gallatin? It takes you forever to get through that town. And I feel so sorry, because I mean, we've all been there. I was here when all this happened in Hendersonville. I saw it. and I voted against it. You know, and there goes, oh, there's the Skidmores again. They're voting against this. There's the Skidmores again. They're voting against this. And now coming into Hendersonville, I can say, yeah, and I've never said this, but I can say it, and I'm not proud to say it. I trust you, but now I can come back and say, all those people 20 years ago, you were wrong, and I told you so. Have I ever said anything like that? No. Will I ever will? No. But that is the road that we're taking right now. And we are going to pay the price for this. We're going to pay the price. Just like we had when we had the burst of growth in this city. Just like what Gallatin's experiencing now. How many apartment complexes do those guys have? How many hotels do they have? How long does it take to go down Gallatin Road when you go to the courthouse? I mean, we have to wake up. We really do. And we've got to say no in this town. We really do. We got to say enough is enough. We've had enough on this zoning ordinance. So I don't know if anybody else wants to speak, but if not, we'll go call the question on the amendment, and let's get this over with, and let's move on, because we've discussed this for too much.
Alderman Skidmore, are you making a motion on the question? We only have Alderman Sassy to speak.
No, I'll take the call back.
Okay, Alderman Sassy. Thank you, Alderman Skidmore.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Free, or Director Free, I just had a quick question from you. You mentioned about for the property of the hotel that to get a height variance, I guess, it would just be a text change. Is that right?
Could be a text change.
Okay.
Yes.
Would that still have to go back to the planning commission for them to review it?
And then come back here for final decision.
Okay, and that seems
And that's
completely reasonable to me.
in the future if they went that path.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that seems completely reasonable to me. There's a path forward for that. Thank you. I just wanted to check on that.
Alderman Sassy, thank you. So we have a vote on the amendment that it pertains to these two pieces of property. Jason, you ready for us? Anybody need it explained?
Yes.
Oh, Alderman Bergdorf. Just explanation? Okay. So the amendment that we have, this was seconded by Alderman Garza, was to designate the child care lot as neighborhood commercial and to allow the lot that has the hotel to have a building of 45 feet.
So if you're in support of this, you vote in the affirmative.
Yes. Yes.
If you were not in support of it, you vote in the negative.
Exactly. Okay. Did I explain that well? Keith, any concerns about the way I explained that?
Yeah, I think you also wanted to did you want to allow a hotel as a allowable use on that?
Yes,
this
thank
side as
you.
well. That was the other thing you had.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So all those in favor, we're good. Press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. So those in favor are Alderman Garza and myself. Those opposed, Alderman Bergdorf, Skidmore, Peterson, Martin, Sassy, Dixon, Goodwin, Garten, and Collins. So we're back on the main motion, which has one amendment on it, and that was the substitute by Alderman Martin, with the exception of the one zoning designation. Alderman Bergdorf, you want to speak on this?
Well, yes, please.
Okay.
When we vote for this one.
Hold on. Sorry.
Am I up?
No, we just want to make sure you don't. There we go. Okay.
We're good. Okay, thank you. I just want to get a clarification on this vote as well.
Okay. Let's see. So, Keith, you want to do this?
So this
Yes.
is
Yeah.
this is the motion as I understood it from Alderman Martin is to approve the recommendation that came from the Planning Commission as it was before it got to General Committee, with the addition of removing reclamation facility as a new definition, and its association, its location in tables throughout the document to remove that. And that is what I believe Mr. Martin, I believe that's what your motion was.
That's correct. Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Bergdorf. Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I get a definition of a reclamation center? Am I saying that right?
I think so.
Yeah, and the definition of a reclamation facility was a manufacturing process and recovering of products from extracted or raw materials or recycled or secondary materials, temporarily bulk storage and handling of such products and materials for use on site or export off-site. This classification may include operations such as biomass energy conversion and pyrolysis, but excludes uses dealing with toxic or hazardous materials. And so that would be removing that particular definition that was newly added and just taking that out.
The Planning Commission approved that?
They approved the addition of that, yes.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson. Thank you, Keith. Jason, ready to go electronic? All those in favor press the green button. Those opposed press the red one. That passes unanimously. Appreciate that. Alderman Dixon, do you have a motion?
Yes, can we take a 10-minute break?
We have a motion to take a 10-minute break, a second by Alderman Garza. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, so next we have first reading of ordinance 2023-27. This is an ordinance amending the Hendersonville Municipal Code, Titles 12, Chapter 6, to adopt a revised edition of the International Energy Conservation Code and amending Title 12, Chapter 2, to adopt amendments to the International Residential Code. We have a motion from Alderman Sassy and a second from Alderman Garza. All those in favor of ordinance 2023-27, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have first reading of ordinance 2023-38. This is an ordinance amending budget ordinance 2023-11 for appropriations to repair certain city property damaged by the recent tornado. We have a motion from Alderman Sassy, a second from Alderman Garza. Alderman Dixon.
Yes, I just want to make the board aware we had a special call finance meeting tonight, and this passed unanimously.
Alderman Dixon, thank you. Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have three questions. Where's the money coming from?
So this comes from our general fund, and it's based on estimates that we have from our insurance carrier on how much that they are going to cover us. What we had done a couple years ago, and we learned from this mistake, was that we waited until the insurance company sent us the check, and then we started doing the repairs. The problem was that then we had some amenities that weren't in use during that time. Since we have more money in the general fund than we used to, we feel more comfortable doing this now. We're going to take the money out of the general fund now, and then replenish that amount of money when we get the check from the insurance carrier. And FEMA. And FEMA, good point, yes.
Okay, so if insurance covers everything, we'll just immediately put this $1 million back into the general fund?
Yes.
So we don't need to make an amendment?
That's exactly what we're avoiding.
Okay, perfect. And my last question is, this is for storm damage certain city properties. Does that include the Bradford Berry House?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of ordinance 2023-28, first reading, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you all. Now we're on to resolution 2024-1. This is a resolution to waive permit fees for properties damaged by the December 9, 2023 tornado. We have a motion from Alderman Goodwin, a second from Alderman Dixon. Alderman Peterson.
Mayor, I'd like to sponsor this as well.
Without objection, we're going to add Alderman Peterson's name as a sponsor. Alderman Sassy.
Ditto.
Without objection, we're going to add Alderman Sassy's name as a sponsor. Alderman Martin.
I can't wait to add my name to this one.
Without objection, we're going to, is there anybody who would not want to be a sponsor of this? What was that? Okay, without objection, we're going to add everybody's name as a sponsor. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of resolution 2024-1, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. Please make sure that we reflect that everybody is a sponsor of that. Next, we have resolution 2024-3. This is authorizing the planning department to create a sign grant program for the Westlake plan area. We have a motion from Alderman Peterson. And a second, you jumped the gun. And a second from Alderman Goodwin. Without objection, Alderman Garza will be shown as a sponsor. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor of resolution 2024-3, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. I need to definitely thank Jesse, Keith, and Jay for putting this together. And now we're on to other agenda items, down to reports, brief committee reports. We need a general committee report from Alderman Peterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We did meet tonight. General committee met, and a lengthy agenda, and Jason Gallo has my notes. And if anyone has any questions.
I'm working on pulling them up. Bear with me for a sec. The joys of electronics. All right. So tonight, General Committee did meet. We had a number of different items. The first was an ordinance 2024-01, rezoning 32.37 acres at Music City Boulevard. That was discussed and came from the Planning Commission with a split vote of 4-4. It was approved and moved on to BOMA. Then we also had several resolutions. Resolution 2348, resolution authorizing Silver Fox Stitches to use the city's logo. That's been referred to BOMA for the next agenda with some discussion about royalty fees and other compensation that goes with the city's use, or individuals' use of the city's logo. We also had 2024-02, the resolution to rename the dog park at Memorial Park to Sampson's Dog Park. And that was approved unanimously to move forward. We have the items that you all have been discussing. So 2024-03, authorizing the planning department to create a signed grant program. That was moved forward. You all just talked about that one. Then we also had the 2024-04. This one is authorizing the handmade market to renew the use of the city grounds here. So that was approved to move forward to BOMA. That would allow them to use, like they do right now, a Friday night and a Saturday, so the weekends, for the handmade market. Let's see. We also had the resolution 24-01, resolution to waive the permit fees, which you all apparently wanted to sponsor, so that moved forward with a positive recommendation. Aside from that, there was just some other business talking about the matter before with an individual who had said that she wanted to talk with BOMA, or I'm sorry, General Committee, and she wasn't present at the last General Committee meeting. She wasn't present at this one. There was a suggestion to just connect Lance Ray with the Planning Department to review a letter. Beyond that, that's the report for the General Committee.
Do we have any questions for Chairman Peterson? Chairman Peterson, thank you. Jason, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Mayor.
I'd like to sponsor this report.
Alderman Martin, Planning Commission report, please.
Keith, can you give mine?
I would love to. He used to do mine.
Planning Commission met on Tuesday, January 2nd. We had on the consent agenda Bellsford Landing Phase 1 final plat that was approved. On the development plans, we had Glen Oak Commons Retail, an FDP add use, simply requesting a recreational training facility because they already had that business there. So that was a simple request that we granted. The other one is one that you probably heard some about. This is the project called TBN Music City. It's a preliminary development plan. This is the old Twitty City. They want to add as a use assisted living. We heard from Frank Amadea from Touch of Heaven Ministries. He was representing himself. He's the real estate division, I guess, president of the TBN group that owns the property. Just some quick bullet points. This project has kind of been in discussions for a while, I think 14 months. And it just finally showed up to the Planning Commission for a matter of first impression for us. It currently shows 22 unit memory care and 58 assisted care units. He indicated that because of the recent tornado, they have about 100 staff members that are currently displaced. Some are working from home, some are working in buildings that are on the verge of needing to be assisted. He did say in response to some of the Planning Commission members on ways we can keep the Twitty City image alive here in Hendersonville, he said that the Twitty bird is going to be salvaged and incorporated into the new project. And he said that they're going to keep that brick wall that goes on the outside. And kind of, I guess we left it at that. There is a note about the traffic demand. So assisted living has a lot less traffic that is caused by that project use, whereas it's currently zoned for office. And if we built offices like we could today, you would have a lot more traffic entering and exiting Main Street than you would if you had assisted living type project uses. And they also said they're cognizant of their neighbors, so Baptist Church, they're going to share their parking with them as needed. Jeff Coker, the Planning Commission chairman, said, hey, we got 197 pages that was submitted to us right before Christmas. We would love to have more time to look at it. So we asked for them to defer it for 30 days. Frank said that his next call was to the president of TBN, and if we didn't review and approve it, then they would be in discussions about moving to Dallas. So we voted on it. The result was a 4-4 tie, which I think is a fail. However, it's not dead. What's going to happen is, what's already happened is that it's gone to general committee, and they reviewed it. They, I believe Jason said it's recommended for approval, and it's going to go to the next BOMA meeting, our next BOMA meeting later this month. Is that everything? Okay.
Alderman Martin, thank you. Chairman Dixon, the Finance Committee, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as I said a few moments ago, the Finance Committee met with a special called meeting this evening. The only thing that was on our agenda was Ordinance 2023-28, appropriating money for the tornado repairs for the city. And that's all the single item that we had on our agenda. Thank you.
Chairman Dixon, thank you. Next, we have a report from our COO, Jesse.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm actually going to go over a little bit of the report this time on the screen so that everyone can see it. If you would click to the next slide, please, Jason. We can see that local sales tax for November came up a slight amount. It's up 1.14% from July to November. We've had about a half of a month of Costco online now. So we see year to date, which is the column graph on the right, we're a little under $100,000 above where we were the previous year, but we did see a little bit of an uptick this month with Costco on for half the month. So next month will be the first month that we see Costco online for the whole month. But local sales tax is definitely flattened out. We're basically experiencing what we experienced last year, and we are not experiencing the growth. The November difference at the very top of the screen for November from 22 to 23 was 42,000. So most of that's probably attributable to Costco coming online. If you go to the next slide, please, Jason. This combines local sales tax and permit revenue. So we're up almost 4% from where we were last year, year to date, which means that our permit revenue is doing decent. If you go to the next slide, please, Jason. General fund operating expenditures, you can see in November. The orange is fiscal year 24, so quite a significant jump. We're up year to date almost 25% on our general fund operating expenditures. As you can see on the top of the slide, there's really three reasons for this. Goods inflations, which we're just seeing across the board. We're having higher wages because of the COLA that we passed, but really we did a one-time payment for paving of almost $2 million. So that's where we have a pretty significant jump, where in December of 2023, it looks like we had some of that where we paid out last year. So we continue to see our operating expenditures just go up as we all know, things across the board are just more expensive. You go to the next slide, please. So this is kind of where we want to focus on what we've seen the trend. So the column or the line graph on the left shows fiscal year 24 in the orange. So this is residential permits that are issued. So you see where we're just going through December because we have the information up to December, that residential permits are really down this year. But if you look at the graph next to it, you can see the commercial side of things is significantly up. So we're seeing a reduction in residential and increase in commercial. The column graph on the right shows that the commercial projects that have been approved year to date are up 95% from the previous year. So pretty significant increase. And we're going to look at the next slide. It shows commercial permit valuation. So we have 2020, 21, 22, and 23. You can see a really big jump, commercial activity, 23. And so on the right-hand side of the screen, I think that's the top 9, or the big 9 for the commercial permit valuation that we had come in this year. Obviously, Costco's number 2, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, and Jeep. That's quite a large facility that they're building. floor and decor. All these are either underway or almost complete. So that's what really kind of makes up this commercial permit valuation. So pretty significant increase in year 2023. And if you would go to the next slide, please. These are just some pictures I want to give our fire department. We have the greatest fire department, I think, in the state, maybe the nation, but want to give these guys a shout out. This is the tornado cleanup. They were out there just in the community, so these are some shots of these guys out with the community. You go to the next slide, please. This is our Public Works Department. The big truck on the left-hand side, those are a vendor that we had under contract in the event we had an event like this. We called them, they came in. They have completed all the cleanup. So they, along with us, have collected over approximately 31,000 cubic yards. So we're, about a month after the event, and they're already out of here. They were a tremendous help, but you can see some of our guys were picking up as well. If you go to the next slide, please, Jason. We had City of Lebanon, Goodlettsville. We had a ton of agencies come in to help us, which was just really amazing. So we're working on putting thank you letters out to those guys. We didn't have pictures of PD, but I'm sure you all saw all the PD officers who were out working the intersections, and we had quite an outpouring of other agencies who came and help us too. And even within Public Works, we had street sweeping, the folks who do our street sweeping, which is Sweeping Corporation of America. They came for free and did cleanup on our streets. Our Republic gave us free dumpsters where we did our Cleanup Hendersonville Day. If you go to the next slide, Jason. This is really multiple groups who organize this, but Andy and the Parks Department really spearheaded this. They had over 100 volunteers who came and did a community cleanup day. Waste Pro brought some dumpsters out there, and they spent the day cleaning up the park. So Parks really did a really great job, and a lot of people from the community came out to help them. If you go to the next slide, please. This was what United Way, the Chamber, and beautiful Hendersonville put on for the cleanup day after the tornado with a lot of help from Casey. Casey was really working behind the scenes to make sure everything worked well, along with United Way, Chamber, and beautiful Hendersonville. But there was 600 to 700 folks who showed up to come out and clean the city, and so we got more donations than we could even accept in terms of water bottles and trash bags and all these things, and people were asking us, and FEMA told us, you will have a problem of people giving you too much stuff where you don't have a need for it. So pretty neat to be in a community where they give you more than you actually need. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, that's the end of it. I'm going to bring Casey up. She is going to give you a little demonstration, a sneak peek of something that's on the way.
So tomorrow, if all goes as planned, the city will have a new website around midday, and this is what it will look like on the front page. So the goal when we recreated the website was to have all the same information and then some, but make it way easier for people to find it. And as everyone knows, we all look for things a little differently, so there's multiple ways that people can find things based on how their brains tell them to find things, so that's great. And it's only actually in one spot, meaning it makes it easier for us to update it because we're only updating it one time, even though there's multiple ways to get to it. We have these really cool new buttons across the bottom that make some specific things that we think are important to residents to be able to find and quick access to. The news and events, if you scroll a little bit below, it's broken out where we have calendars for the meetings, and all of the agendas and minutes are going to be linked right into that, as well as we can highlight our events. So in general, I think it looks a lot better. It's way more user-friendly. And as we know that most of our users are actually using through the mobile, not a website, this is probably even better on mobile. It's just very clean. It looks very good, much better than what we had. So I'm excited to get it rolled out. Thanks. As we mentioned before, there is a way that people can sign up for notifications through this site. I know we've talked about it a lot, and it will enable us to reach residents better. So as the website kind of rolls out and it gets a little bit more beefed up, there'll be some things we tweak. We'll be pushing people to enroll so that they can get notifications about things, and we can set that up so that we can tell them all kinds of things.
Hold on one second. Alderman Peterson. Oh, actually, Alderman Bergdorf, do you want to ask her a question, or is that for Jesse?
I just want to talk in general later.
Alderman Peterson.
Casey, can you buy permits and pay taxes and all kinds of stuff on this website?
So we do have the citizen online portal, and I know that they've been working on all kinds of things to make that happen, but this portion of it did not cover that. So I'm not sure. Anything that they can do on our existing site now that they can buy, that will transfer over, and then I know that they're working on ways to beef that up more.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Casey or for Jesse? We appreciate it. Alderman Bergdorf, you said you want to bring up something. We need to, oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Collins.
I do have a question for Jesse.
Okay.
About the Bradford Berry House behind us here. And I've had so many questions about the tornado damage and what are the expectations for at least getting the tree off the roof and getting it boarded up properly so that no further damage is occurring, whether or not the windows were broken out from the tornado or just previously.
Great question. I think today the remainder of the trees were pulled off the house. I think that was finished up late this afternoon. And I believe next week we have a contractor who's scheduled to retarp the roof. And as far as boarding up the windows and doors, I believe that's done.
Okay.
We have one of our maintenance guys who's assigned to that, and that's a high priority for him right now. So as of today, all the trees were off the house, and it looks like early to mid next week, I think, is when we're going to re-tarp the roof. And all the boards on the doors and windows are still intact. So from that perspective, it looks good, and we'll have to game plan from there, but it should at least be protected from the elements relatively
And
soon.
then getting the down to trees in the driveway is obviously a lower priority, but do you have any estimate on when that might happen?
That will probably happen through the mid-year budget adjustment.
Okay.
'Cause that will be a significant amount of dollars, but as far as trees that are on the structure, the house structure,
Okay.
those have already been completed.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Alderman Collins, thank you. Any other questions for our CO? Oh, go ahead, Jesse.
I do have one more thing. First of all, Casey's done an awesome job on this. In terms of being able to do online applications for permits, probably in about 6 months, that's going to roll out online. So we've launched a citizen self-service to where a lot of our processes are automated now, and doing it online is the next step. So we're kind of phasing that in. So in about 6 months, we should have that on the city's website. But if you would pull up, there's a benefit concert that's happening. This is really something that Andy and the Parks Department and the Chamber have put together to produce a Hendersonville hometown jam event called Hendersonville Rising. All profits from this event will go to help the local Hendersonville businesses that were impacted by the tornado and help with some of the park's damages not covered by insurance. So it's January 30th, it says up here, 6:30 at the Premier Center, and you can get tickets online at hendersonvilljam.com.
Appreciate that. Any other questions for Jesse? Thank you. Alderman Bergdorf, situation we're in is if this is something that's not on the agenda, you got to get 8 people to agree to add it to the agenda.
Oh, well, I just want.
So,
Can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to thank you all thank the board for the opportunity to have personalized or specialized Hendersonville license plates. I picked up my first one today. And I just wanted to ask and encourage everyone to go out and get one and show your Hendersonville pride. You got 2? Okay, I got my first one of 4, so, yeah. But anyway, it was great, and I encourage everyone to go get one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion. We have a motion to adjourn from Alderman Collins, a second from Alderman Garza. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. That's unanimous. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Y'all have a good night. Appreciate y'all's help tonight.